So this is the masthead of William Lloyd Garrison's original abolitionist newspaper, but it's colorized because it's the Liberator dot today. This just arrived, hot off the presses. Walter Brueggemann's new book, A Gospel of Hope. Annie Lamott has a book on hope coming out this fall. It's a good year to study hope, folks. Today we have one last section in Brueggemann's essay, Living Toward a Vision, and he wants to alert us to the three main enemies of hope. What works to keep hope from having power among us, he asks. The enemies of hope include muteness, fulfillment, and technique. All ways of trying to keep life on our own terms. My name is Lowell Bliss. Welcome to episode number 17 of the Liberator Today's video series on hope. Quote, the first enemy of hope is silence, civility, and repression, Brueggemann says, which he later summarizes with one word, muteness. The example he gives from the New Testament is of the blind beggar Bartimaeus of Mark 10. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me, Bartimaeus calls out. Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, the text says. Brueggemann asks, do you wonder why? Because it was an embarrassment, a disruption, just not nice? Perhaps so. Perhaps that is the only way one can administer beggars. If he were kept silent, he would remain hopeless and remain a docile beggar. But the narrative goes on to say he cried out all the more. He was not muted, and therefore not hopeless. By the end of the story, he has gained well-being, but he had to resist the pressure to be silent, or he would have had no chance, no hope. Unquote. Scholars call fulfillment, the second great enemy of hope, realized eschatology. A presumption that one's current existence is the complete fulfillment of God's promise, or complete enough. Brueggemann writes, if muteness is a problem from below, obviously fulfillment is a problem from above, from the well-off who are satiated to boredom and cynicism, who have no want, desire nothing, and need only to protect what they already have. The scripture passage that Brueggemann uses is Luke 12, the story of the rich man with the full barns, who thought he should take his ease, eat, drink, and be merry, await no new newness from God. Actually, both of these enemies of hope, muteness and fulfillment, make me think of C.S. Lewis's final Narnia book, The Last Battle. The background hope in the story is that Aslan the lion, Aslan the Christ figure, while he has not been seen in Narnia for many, many years, has promised to return. A nefarious talking ape dresses a poor donkey in a thrown-off lion skin and proclaims to all of Narnia, look, Aslan has come back in fulfillment of his promises. It's a good gig for the ape who enslaves the Narnian creatures, shouting down the bewildered bears, imprisoning the loyal dogs, even executing the dissenting horses. Narnia is silenced. The third enemy of hope is technique, which Brueggemann defines as, quote, the capacity to figure out, analyze, and problem solve. Now, he doesn't want to oversimplify, since even the people of hope need to analyze and problem solve, but he proposes 4 examples for us to consider. In the Bible, technique, the capacity to reduce life's mysteries to manageable, discrete elements, is embodied in the wise men of Pharaoh, Exodus 8, who are called magicians, in the wise men and magicians in the Joseph narrative, Genesis 41, who are to interpret dreams, in the wise men of Nebuchadnezzar, who fail, Daniel 2, and in the religious experts who are condemned, Deuteronomy 18, 9 through 11, who manage the religious system. There may be other examples, but this is a fair sample. Notice the representatives of technique include both religious and secular political experts who believe that the data on hand will provide sufficient knowledge and power, when rightly read, to handle the future. Unquote. Brueggemann points out that these bright technocrats who think that without God they can accomplish whatever newness might be required are invariably funded and sponsored by the big house, and so predictably it is likely to serve those ends. Not only are the wise funded by the established patronage, but also the knowledge so derived is always in the interest of royal policy. Unquote. If you are familiar with The Last Battle, these technicians are represented by the character of the ginger cat, I believe. These narratives are in the Bible, Brueggemann claims, because in each instance the expert of technique fails, an outsider must be brought in. In each case, Moses, Joseph, Daniel, the outsider turns out to be a faithful Israelite, one who has no credentials but is grounded in hope and therefore has the capacity to gain life and give it. C.S. Lewis's book, it is the children Jill and Eustace who are brought in as outsiders from our world to give hope to Tyrion, the despairing king of Narnia. That brings us to the end of Walter Brueggemann's essay, Living Toward a Vision, Grief in the Midst of Technique. It was first given as a lecture at Purdue University, is now anthologized in the book Hope in History, published in 1987. Next week, we'll launch a series that explores the timeline of hope. We are aware of the basis for long-term hope in Christ's return and our resurrection. But is there also a basis for hope before then, in the short term, right now? I'm Lowell Bliss, environmental missionary and climate activist. Thank you for visiting the Liberator today.